Hello, welcome back to the Life Reset Collective. I'm Josh, and today I want to talk about how to start over after divorce without losing yourself. So, I've gone through 2 divorces, and in fact, if you watch my uh, last video I posted, I give a little bit of a background, but the background isn't as important as the moving forward. And that's one thing on this channel that I want to really talk about. I want to say this, and I want everyone who watches to understand this, and I think this is so important. Looking backwards is only useful to a certain extent. Looking forwards is going to be so much better. Looking forward, forgiving yourself, and looking forward, letting go of the past and moving forward, not reliving all of that back there. Instead, finding new things to live for, moving forward. This is so important. And so that's why I don't really feel the need to share the story of my divorce. I've been through 2 divorces, and I had to completely reset my life after each one. So the reason I chose this topic first is because this is so close to my heart and so close to my actual experience. And I want to just talk very honestly about my experiences with this. And the purpose of this channel is to help basically provide steps for people who are resetting their life, who have to have a life reset, whether it's a total life reset or you're just resetting in certain categories. Sometimes we reset at the beginning of the year. Sometimes we reset our whole lives because we lose everything or whatever it is. Sometimes we learn something terrible and then we have to move on from that. Sometimes something terrible happens to us, we have to move on from it. Sometimes life just deals you a wildly bad hand, right? There are many reasons you may need to reset your life, but today I want to share basically how to start over after divorce without losing yourself. Life reset conversation, because no matter how you split it, you're going to need to reset your life to a certain extent after divorce. So I want to go through the 9 steps that I have realized have been the most helpful, the most beneficial to me in my journey of resetting after divorce. And I've done this twice. And I will admit that the first time I got divorced, I kind of like focused more on the physical aspects of things. Things like money, shelter, resources, finding a comfortable living space, trying to get physically acclimated in my life again. This was the first part of it. But the second time around, I'm realizing, and I have realized, that the spiritual and emotional aspects cannot be neglected, because if we neglect those things, we're going to leave wounds that are going to come back later. And so we want to take care of ourselves. When we're resetting our life, we want to help ourselves. We want to love ourselves. We want to set ourselves free to venture forward and have an amazing life, have a good life, have another chance. I believe that I deserve another chance. I believe you deserve another chance. I don't care what you've been through or what you've done. I don't care how bad or how low things might get. I always believe there's hope. I always believe we can move forward. And I always believe that you should believe in yourself, that you should have confidence, that you should treat yourself with dignity and decency and say, you know what? I do deserve life after divorce. I do deserve to move forward even after this happened. Maybe the divorce was my fault. Maybe it was the other person's fault. To be really honest, for the sake of this conversation, I don't even care about that, because what I care about is you moving forward. That's what this whole thing is about. And I think it's really important that we do learn from the past, but that's not what this is about. That's not what I am here to talk about. I'm here to talk about how to move forward. And so I have 9 steps that have helped me, and I want to share them with you today. Okay. Step number 1, stabilize your space and body. Okay. So stabilizing basically means to find some kind of security. If your living situation got basically taken apart over the course of your divorce, which is going to happen to about 50% of people who get divorced, like their living situation is going to become at best weird. Maybe they're going to keep living with their ex. Maybe they have friends or family they can move in with for the short time until they get an apartment or get a house, whatever it is. But the truth is, even that can be unsettling and destabilizing. So I have found that finding stabilization for your body and for the space you're in is really important. This is important for a lot of reasons, but basically it comes down to this. And you're going to probably come to feel this at some point, but you are not really at home until you are at home. And home has changed now. After divorce, the concept of home is different now. And so there's no way like we're going to feel comfortable in this space, staying with friends, staying with family, right? Having to go to a hotel room. For some people, being homeless for a while. I personally have experienced that. It is destabilizing, and so it maybe can't happen all at once, but I want you to make yourself the promise that you're going to work toward stabilization for yourself, that you're going to work toward finding a stable environment. It's so important. You deserve a stable environment where you can actually feel at home. And maybe even, like, I know there might not be anything you can do about it for a little while, right? But I'm hoping that just by hearing me say that can resonate with you, and you can realize that it is so important. And you can also be aware that you might be missing it, and then feel that loss, and then name that loss, and that it is okay to feel that way. And it's okay to name that, because it is really important. Another thing I want to say is that these 9 steps I'm going to go through, they don't happen in sequential order. They happen oftentimes out of order, and we hit them at different times. And often we cycle through them a lot of times over the process before we finally achieve a life reset where we're back on our feet in all of the categories, right? Anyway, so stabilize your space and body is the first step. Step number 2 is reconnect with your body. Going through divorce is traumatic. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if your divorce was the most peaceful divorce or if it was the most crazy, like explosive, conflict-oriented divorce. I know that the high likelihood is that if anyone watches this video, 97% probably or more of the people who watch this video, if they're really honest with themselves, if you're really honest with yourself, you're going to realize that your divorce traumatized the hell out of you. It probably did. It probably hurt your feelings. It probably made you feel all kinds of negative things: rejection, hurt, sadness, anger, bitterness, betrayal. And it doesn't matter what side of it you're on. It doesn't matter if you're the one who initiated it or if you're the one who, it was initiated on. The truth is, you're probably going to be traumatized. So reconnect with your body means to sit with that trauma, sit with all the discomfort you feel, name it, and just don't bottle it up. Don't push it away. Accept it and just say, I am traumatized. My feelings are hurt. I am angry. And allow yourself to feel those things, right? And then eventually work through healing. And that's the first step toward healing. But I want you to just name them and come to terms with them first. Don't let them just exist inside of you as like hidden wounds, because then they'll fester and become infected. It's kind of the metaphor, right? Grieve and get clear is step number 3. So this basically means you're allowed to grieve, and you might need time. This might look different for different people. This might look like crying for a half hour a day for the first 2 weeks into your divorce. Grieving may look like you wanting to go somewhere and sit in quiet and not talk to anyone. Grieving might mean you laying in bed all day for the following weekend, or maybe for the following 4 weekends, okay? Grief is going to look a lot different to a lot of different people, and I don't know what your grief is going to look like, but it's so important to give yourself time to grieve. If you don't give yourself time to grieve, once again, all that sorrow, all that sadness, all that anger, all of those negative emotions are just going to get left inside of you. Expressing them, letting them out, giving them a voice, right? I once heard a theory that there are different versions of us, and it's kind of like different elements of us that live in the same body. We have like, you know, there might be like the childhood version of you, there might be the wise, educated version of you, there might be the emotional side of you, whatever. I'm not an expert on this, but I think that there's a little truth to that, in that there are parts of you that are going to feel like grieving in certain kind of ways, and don't ignore it. Don't push it down. Don't let that fester. And then get clear means to look back and name what actually happened. This is hard. If we're the ones who caused the divorce, then we're not going to want to do that, because we're going to feel guilty, or we're going to not want to blame ourselves or take responsibility, maybe because that's painful. If we're the ones who it happened to, then we might not want to look at that, because we might not want to closely examine all of the crappy things that were done to us. But the truth is, if we don't get clear on like figuring out exactly what happened, once again, that's going to stay inside. There is an element of getting clear on it to understand how to avoid it and spot it again in the future, but that's not what I'm trying to talk about right now. I'm not here trying to teach you to learn from your mistakes in the past. That's not what this channel is. 0% about that. This channel is literally about resetting your life and moving forward. And so the reason that I want you to get clear on what happened in the past is because it's really important for you to kind of debrief yourself for closure's sake. And it might take a long time to feel any kind of closure, but it will be nearly impossible to get closure if you don't get clear on what happened, name it, and spell it out, even the parts that you're not proud of. And you don't necessarily have to do this with anyone. Doing it with yourself is what is most important. Getting clear with it with yourself is the most important thing. And that's going to lead us to step 4, forgive and begin again. Okay, there's going to come a time during your journey, and like I said, these steps do not go in order usually, but there's going to come a time when it's time to start beginning again. It's going to be time to officially hit that reset button, which basically is the moment when you say, it's time to start the next chapter of my life. It's time to start taking action toward it. That might be 5 minutes after your divorce. That might be literally 30 seconds after you were informed of it. You might have started this step 2 weeks before you told your partner you were done, or this might take weeks. You might have to grieve some things before you get to this step, but this step is important. Associated with this begin again step is a forgiveness step. And these are not going to happen at the same time, but I believe, and I've come to understand, that it's really important that we forgive not only the other people involved in the situation, but that we forgive ourselves. And here's why. And this is all in the spirit of resetting and moving forward. When we allow that anger and that bitterness and that resentment to live in us, it's going to stay right in there, all that negativity. And it's going to be like a splinter, and then the skin's going to grow over it, and it's just going to sit there, and it's going to build up scar tissue and get infected, and it's going to get nasty. And that's what it can do to you. It's really important for us to forgive the people who wronged us, and it's really important that we forgive ourselves if we made bad choices or mistakes. It's so important to forgive yourself, and you should, and you deserve that. You deserve forgiveness. I believe that 100%, that everyone deserves forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness. So forgive yourself, which is really hard for me to do. That's like one of the most difficult steps for me to take, is to forgive myself, because I start thinking about all the mistakes I made. I start thinking about what I could have done better, and I will drive myself crazy, and I'll never move on if I get stuck in that mode. But that's something that we do sometimes, and I'm telling you, it's okay to move on and forgive yourself. It's okay to get ready. It's okay to get started on that reset. Okay. That's going to lead us to number 5. Take charge of your resources. There's going to come a time in this reset journey where you're going to have to get scrappy about your resources. So it's going to be like making a budget, rationing food, trying to eat healthy food, right? Instead of like junk food too much, taking care of your health, making sure that you get adequate sleep, trying not to like drink too much and things like that, trying to maintain a time schedule that allows for you to Make as much money as you need. For some people, money isn't the issue. For some people, divorce plunges them into a really weird financial place because maybe they didn't have savings or something. So it kind of depends on where you fall on the spectrum of that. But for me, finances both times were a pretty significant thing. Thankfully, not as much the second time because I had learned a few things and I had more skills and I was at a more better place in my career. But managing those resources, getting on top of that, like, so I would encourage you to make a budget. I would encourage you to make a daily planner. I would encourage you to limit the intake of substances to try to ease the pain, try to limit that as much as you can. I would encourage you to make sure that you ration your time so you're getting enough sleep. Set yourself a bedtime. That is so difficult for some people. It's really hard for me to do, but if I don't be careful, I'll stay up all night thinking, and then the next day I will not be near as productive. I won't get near as much done. And in this reset, it's important that we do the best we can to manage our resources because generally you're being plunged into a state of relative scarcity to some degree. We were in a partnership with someone. Now we are not. It's gone from a team of two to a team of one. And so in some cases, that might mean you have more resources because there's not someone dragging you down. But for some people, this is difficult. And so taking charge of your resources is an important step. And this leads us to step number 6, anchor into the sacred. Okay. This is something that has been surprisingly helpful to me. I'm not by nature like a super religious person. And my spiritual beliefs don't matter. My religious beliefs don't matter. Neither do yours, actually, in the sense of what I'm about to tell you. Whether you're religious or spiritual or not, it doesn't matter in this. I'm not judging you anyway. Whether you're Buddhist, agnostic, atheist, Christian, Muslim, Hindu, I literally don't care. Outside of this, though, this is important. I believe that grounding in the sacred is important for us. And by this I mean maybe ancient human teachings, religious human teachings, spiritual teachings. There's something about the fact that we have been on this planet for a long time. And, I've read some books. I'm no expert on this, but they say that humans have been around for millions of years. Homo sapiens, our unique kind of like type of human that we are, so like there were the Neanderthals and there was the other ones. Homo sapiens have been around for at least 100,000 years is kind of what I've read. I don't know if that's true. It doesn't really matter. The point is we've been here a long, long time. And I think that there's something sacred and grounding about tapping into ancient things. And this could mean like ancient prayers, ancient meditation techniques. So for example, Buddhism is, I think, extremely helpful to people. Even if you're not Buddhist, though, incorporating the meditation techniques can be really grounding. For me, I'm not religious, but I've started reciting a number of different prayers. I actually did some research and I looked up Catholic prayers. I looked up actually Hindu prayers from many different kind of like religions, like Norse prayers. But I even got really into looking up prayers. There's some really amazing, incredible prayers that have come passed down basically by storytelling in like Saharan African tribes, those religions which are a bit more obscure, so they're not like huge world religions, but there are a lot of faiths that kind of come from those cultures, and the prayers they have are incredible and powerful and beautiful. And so I have found a lot of beauty and sacredness in like reciting those prayers. And here's what's important about that. I think that as humans, we need something to anchor ourselves to when our lives are careening sideways. I think that if you have a religious faith, becoming more grounded in that faith is probably really important. Reciting the prayers of your faith might become really important. Going back to church, if you are a churchgoer, that might be a great thing to do. Anchoring yourself to the sacred, anchoring yourself to what is ancient, anchoring yourself to your ancestors, to the higher power, to the spirit realm, whatever it is that you believe. I think that it's really important to do that. And that's actually been an important like healing and emotionally, psychologically stabilizing step for me. And it gives me hope. And it kind of makes me feel empowered to do that. So I think that's really important. Now we're going to move on to step 7. Reimagine what's possible. One of the most important things for humans is hope. If we have hope, we can do almost anything. Whereas if we do not have hope, we're going to wither away. I really believe this is true. So it's really important that as we go through this process of starting over after divorce, it's really important that you start to imagine what could be possible, what your life could look like, that you start making plans and goals that give you hope and make you think there's a reason to keep living. There's a reason to wake up tomorrow. There's a reason to try again. I have something on the horizon that I'm looking forward to. This is so crucial important, and I want this for you. I want you to have hope for the future. I want you to have plans that you can look forward to and say, I believe I can achieve that. I don't care how far-fetched they are. It doesn't even really, we're not even talking about goal achievement. We're talking about making goals that give you hope and imagining what is possible. And let me also tell you something. If there are people around you who, when you try to share those ideas or goals or hopes and they knock them down, stop talking to those people. You don't need that negativity in your life right now. I'm telling you right now, stop. Because they don't understand what you're going through. They don't understand the place you're in. Don't let that affect you. You need that hope. That hope is crucial. And it doesn't even matter if you change the plan. If you have hope and you can reimagine what's possible, that's what's important. Because we need a reason to keep going, man. And this is going to go to step 8. Reclaiming joy and aliveness. So when you go through divorce, joy very often seems like a faraway stranger that you used to be friends with and now you don't know them anymore. It can be very hard to feel anything even remotely resembling joy when you are going through divorce, when you're going through that difficult thing, that terrible time. But, I'm going to tell you what, it's so important to try. And I used to do things like, I watched a lot of comedy specials when I was going through my first divorce because just that bit of laughter, being able to laugh just a little bit was like a really potent medicine. And like, hanging out with funny people and happy people and laughing with friends, watching funny movies, and then also going out and, traveling, I think. And you don't have to travel far. Obviously, when you're going through divorce, there isn't probably time or sometimes money to travel. Sometimes you're too busy with work and things, but even just taking a walk down a street you've not been down before, or driving to a different part of town, or driving to another town, or taking an overnight trip. After my wife told me about in my first divorce, when my wife told me basically she was done, I left that night and I took an overnight trip to another state, and I just slept in my car, and I just needed to get away, and I drove like 12 hours one way and 12 hours back, and I went and ate some tacos, and I came back. I just needed to get a change of scenery, and I needed to, obviously it had been spiraling downward and I was already so unhappy, and I just needed to feel some kind of aliveness. And that trip helped me to process, but it also kind of made me feel more alive. It made me feel like, wow, maybe there's hope here. Maybe there's, maybe there's a reason to keep living. Sometimes we get to that point, man. And when you get to that point, a little bit of joy and a little bit of aliveness can go a long way. That might mean eating some candy even if you're trying to watch the calories. So sometimes that's what it takes, just a little bit of something to have some joy and aliveness. Step number 9 is build forward with rhythm. So all 9 of these steps, they're not going to be in order. They're going to be out of order. They're also going to have to cycle a bunch of times. So for example, you're going to need to stabilize your space and body maybe over and over again, many times. You may have to reconnect with your body many, many times. Maybe you're going to have to grieve many times. Get clear on what happened many times, right? So this whole list. You might have to go through all these steps many, many times, but here's what's really important is that you do keep taking steps forward just as much as you can. And I understand some days it's important to understand that maybe grieving is a step that you need to maybe, and this maybe sounds bad, and I know people are maybe going to say, well, this isn't good advice, but I'm going to tell you that I understand laying in bed and crying all day might be a step one day. That might be a grieving step. I'm not here to judge you for that. I'm not here to say that like that's necessarily going to fix the problem. Sometimes, what problem are we trying to fix? This is a really important question to ask. Sometimes you need to heal some wounds, right, before you can take another step. And we got to do what we got to do. But I'm just here to tell you that at least putting some forward momentum in and getting a rhythm going is going to be crucial to getting to the next step. We want to reset. We don't want to stay in limbo forever. We don't want to be in this stuck place forever. We don't want to be in this place where we're just dead in the water, right? We want to be moving forward. So just keep that in mind, moving forward with a rhythm, moving forward with intention, building your new life one little bitty piece at a time. Every dollar you earn is going to be helping you build your new life. Every little bit that you heal is helping you build your own life. Every time you forgive a little bit for yourself, forgive the other person a little bit, you're building your new life. All of these steps helping you build your new life. And so some days you might not feel like you've accomplished anything, but friend, if you've gone through a little bit of grieving, if you have thought and gotten some clarity on things that happened in your marriage and in the divorce, this is a step forward. So give yourself some credit, love yourself a little bit more, be a little gentle with yourself as you go through this. It's been said that we overestimate what we can get done in a day, but we underestimate what we can get done in a year. And the same is true when it comes to resetting your life, starting over after divorce. We think we need to solve all these big problems today, but the truth is, it's going to take probably many days, many weeks, many months, maybe years to get back to a place where you feel like you're not behind the curve anymore. And friend, even if you never get to feeling like, oh, I'm not anywhere near where I would be if that hadn't happened. That might be true, but it doesn't really matter. What really matters is this building forward with rhythm, one little step at a time. Let's just start again. That's what a life reset is about. Let yourself go from that expectation and just realize, I'm hitting the reset button. Every new height I reach now is a new height, period. And that's awesome. And you should feel encouraged by that. All right, friends, this has been Josh with the Life Reset Collective. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please hit that like and subscribe button and stay tuned for more videos. If you are getting ready to reset your life, this is the place for you. Please be kind to yourself. Please be gentle with yourself. I'll see you awesome people on the next video.